Well, there is no getting around the fact that Easter is weird. All over Dallas this morning, children chased after chocolate eggs and marshmallow bunnies hidden in their backyards, and that has nothing to do with Jesus and resurrection. Today, together, we sing hymns that point to love's redeeming work be done. Many attending this morning will question that. We hold this celebration. No one is really sure what it's all about. If we're honest, on this live stream this morning, we are believers in Christ's rise to glory and those who believe today about spring's eternal optimism. Some will want to point to Easter's pagan roots, and some to the fact that for the first time in a very long time, our sanctuary is only full of your hopes and our love rather than Easter bonnets and baskets and children stirring, and yes, bunny ears. Frankly, from my perch, this whole thing feels a little weird this year. More than most, for sure. Together in person, we create a buzz that is lacking, but maybe it's the feeling that we are after that we can find this morning, that feeling of being together. When we read the stories that stop short and don't explain the conclusion and leave us scratching our heads, we ask, how did these stories survive 2,000 years? Some of us are tempted to laugh at the "He is risen" signs handed out by churches in Dallas. One such sign in my neighborhood is like the Christmas lights that line the eave of my house, up all the way from last year. Apparently, for that neighbor, Christ rises every day, and God bless them for that and their optimism. But at the core of this odd fable is nothing about bunnies and yard signs. The core of the story stands at the door of the empty tomb. The women at the tomb grieve the death of Jesus and come to prepare and anoint him for burial, having had to wait through the Sabbath. The Sabbath gave them a quiet 24 hours to ponder his life and theirs. And the Sabbath held them in suspension to pray and to sing hymns and sit with their families. And all the while on their minds was that tomb. The Sabbath is something we have all become familiar with this year, sequestered in our homes, cut off from real contact with most people in our lives. We have stopped our running around, and some of us are grieving loss, and the slowness of quarantine as in Sabbath make it even easier sometimes and harder others. The women hold the Sabbath with their families to ponder what has happened and then go to the tomb, and instead of performing the rituals on Jesus' body, the tomb is empty. A second grief. A terrifying reality, a sense of not knowing if it really ever happened. Those of us who are in grief today understand this well. Without the crescendo of memorials and gatherings of loved ones, we feel like maybe it is unreal. It didn't even happen. We feel a little lost in it all, but hopeful that someday we will gather with our beloveds. The women must ask the question, did someone steal the body? Is he alive? Is there some magical spell being put on us? Don't be alarmed, the young man in the white robe says. Can they believe him? Is this an angel, a disciple they don't know of, the guy from the funeral home calling on them? The conclusion is that he is not there. The tomb is empty. Mary Vogelson, a member of our church choir, once told me a story that her husband Jay, who's Jewish, was in Israel once. He was touring with a bright English tour guide, and they went to what was said to be the Garden of Gethsemane. They went to a tomb which the guide described as the tomb where Jesus was put to rest. Mary said to me that, as she told this story, my Jewish lawyer husband asked, "Well, how do you know it's the right tomb?" To which the tour guide replied, "Well, it's empty, isn't it?" The leap of faith we are making in this story is a long one, like that leap of faith. And many of us have our doubts, but is that really what this is all about? For some of us, it's just tradition, and tradition is important. Tradition holds families together. It marks time in a whirlwind of the mundane or in a pandemic. It points out that some things and moments are sacred when we are tempted to forget that all things and all moments are sacred. So tradition is good, and I'm glad you are tuned in for this special Sunday. It is tradition at the least. And to be honest, Easter might just be the invitation we need today. Easter has that mystical quality. It says to us, look out the window or at a friend or family member and remember life is precious in ways that far surpass any such thoughts we have had to this very day. It says life can be rebuilt, renewed, resurrected from the ashes of disaster and grief or global interruption. And it always has. It says we don't really understand it all. And some of it we don't understand at all. And yet we persist and live and wonder and allow for mysteries to feed us a strange and strangely comforting meal once in a while. That question of whether all this is real or not, is this story real? What does this empty tomb mark? Is not something we need to answer. It is just an invitation, not a conclusion. And for those who don't want mystical, maybe D.H. Lawrence has a word for you. When in that odd poem he says, there are no gods and you can please yourself, maybe he is right. Maybe he is saying there is no mystery to life. It's just plain, tragic, mundane, but maybe he is saying there is something thrilling about this day. And the thrill for me and you is that this is all odd and fun and abstract and mysterious, and we get to end our Lenten fast. I tell you, after 45 days of no sugar, the sugar in my tea this morning was sweeter than ever. And we get to ponder a story that last Sunday was about a triumphant Jesus coming into Jerusalem, no turning back, and then the last tender meal between friends, and then the violence and the grief and the betrayal and death. And we get to stand at the mouth of the tomb together after turning on our computers and magically joining our voices from our homes across the city, the United States, and around the world. We join our hearts to one another through the walls of our domiciles, through our distance. And it's also hard to believe. But if you know me or have ever heard me speak or read a page of my book, you know that I would say to you that you don't have to believe it at all for it to be true. Because here on the edge of the diving board, to plunge or not to plunge, as D.H. Lawrence says, is the real as anything question, real as the biblical story we are reading. For me, the question isn't, is this real or is it not real? The question is, what if? What if life is only partially known? The question is, why not? Resurrection is more a question of why not, isn't it? And the poet has something to say to our doubts about this, and he writes in those beautiful words, and then in the room, whose is the presence that makes the air so still and lovely to me? Who is it that softly touches me over the heart, and that my heart beats soothed, 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 and at peace? Who is it that smooths the bed sheets like the cool, smooth ocean where the fish rest on edge in their own dream? The poet's words speak of mystery. Who is it that clasps and kneads my naked feet till they unfold, till all is well, till all is utterly well? I don't know about you, but I need this today. As I look over the months since my father died, as I look over the last months and years and think of all the things I missed, all the conversations I botched, or the opportunities to heal, how they went sideways. As I think of the church members who have died and the countless ways I can't believe in resurrection, in the memory of 1,000 graves I have stood by and wondered at the hymn which says, "O dawn of light eternal, to thee our hearts upraise. The Easter song of gladness, the Passover of praise. Thine are the many mansions, the dead die not to thee, who fillest from thy fullness time and eternity." And I want all that to be true. And I want death to lead to new life. And most of the time, it just seems so plain and unrewarding. But then the poet reminds me that whether there are gods or no gods, resurrections or no resurrections, Easters or no Easters, something holds my heart and needs my naked feet. No woman, no man, for I am alone, yet what touches me over the heart is bigger than all the mess we are in, and all the deaths we know, and all the changes in our lives that we have had to adapt to. And that stroke over the heart pulls me from my despair and reminds me, walk away from the tomb of despair. As my colleague wrote in that beautiful poem, a tomb is no place to stay. The Easter story reminds me every year that, as it says in John, "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone, but if it dies, it bears much fruit." That something in us must die, and life will sprout up in us in many new ways, even when we don't know how. That when we arrive at moments where we believe in our daily rounds that there are no gods and we can please ourselves, that we might be dying a little to the sacred moment we are in, missing the holy opportunity to see the past, the mundane, and be grateful for life's mysteries. It reminds me that a good response to life's moments might be to ask ourselves from time to time tenderly and with an openness and a willingness to hear an answer, who softly touches you over the heart? And it reminds us that if you're in tombs of your own making or feeling lost in quarantine, ask, who clasps and kneads your naked feet until they unfold? It reminds us, remember that a tomb is no place to stay. When life laughs a welcome, when we know we are granted yet another day of living. And so in reflecting on this, we can remember that Easter is not about one person or prophet or a moment in time. It is about a community that had to take up a mission of love because the tomb was empty. The teacher was gone because the body literally turned into the church. And for better or worse, it turned into us. People who shake heads at literalism and smile at our children who are eating too much chocolate, and are commissioned to love one another, especially today when we celebrate this mystery and might not know why. So friends, today you are required to choose to plunge or not to plunge into the mystery of the day. You are required to know that the tomb cannot hold you, that death is not the end of anything, that what comes in life has little reason but many lessons. And one answer to the mystery of today is just to say yes. What if? Why not? And sing that hope can never die, especially if we hold close the mystery that all this means something to us in this moment, something we need, something that we need in hope. Why look ye for the living among the dead? The life we seek is among the living who know joy and hope despite it all. We are the resurrection and the life. Wherever free minds, stretched hearts, and grateful souls reach out of the emptiness to know we are kin, the promise of this day is that we can live in peace. We know love, and we know that it conquers all. We are the resurrection of life itself. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable unto you, God, blessed and holy rock of love and life. Amen.